Welcome to Module 3 of the Non-Residential Lighting Controls video series. In this module, we'll focus on technologies and requirements specific to multi-level lighting controls in the 2016 Energy Standards. Viewers will learn about general types of multi-level lighting controls, mandatory and prescriptive requirements, and the relevant forms and tables for documenting compliance. In this module, we will define multi-level lighting controls, discuss mandatory requirements and prescriptive requirements, and go over the necessary forms for compliance. But first, what are multi-level lighting controls? Multi-level lighting controls provide building occupants with the ability to use all of the light, some of the light, or none of the light in an area. They are often used to control dimmable luminaires, but in some cases they may be used to switch rows or groups of non-dimmable luminaires to achieve different light levels in a space. Multi-level lighting controls can enable both manual and automatic control strategies. When used in combination with manual area controls, they must be capable of controlling lighting through all levels required under the Energy Standards, and they must allow the manual on and off functionality required by Section 130.1a. Multi-level lighting controls can also facilitate other automated lighting control strategies. For example, multi-level lighting controls are key for daylight harvesting. Automatic daylighting controls utilize multi-level lighting controls to provide the necessary control steps required under the Energy Standards, either through stepped or continuous dimming. Another example is scheduling. Multi-level controls enable buildings to schedule light levels based on occupancy or task. When multi-level controls are installed and available, a programmable time clock, for example, can be used to reduce lighting in the evening and early morning when building occupancy is low. Now that we've learned what multi-level controls are, let's take a look at the mandatory requirements contained in the 2016 Building Energy Efficiency Standards. Under the 2016 Energy Standards, general lighting in enclosed spaces 100 square feet or larger, and with a connected lighting load exceeding 0.5 watts per square foot, must have multi-level lighting controls. Lighting must have the number of control steps and meet the uniformity requirements in accordance with Table 130.1-A. These control steps form the foundation of the multi-level controls requirements under the Energy Standards. Multi-level lighting controls cannot override the functionality of other lighting controls required for compliance with the standards. Also, dimmable luminaires must be controlled by a dimmer control that provides occupants the capability to control lighting through all required lighting control steps, and that allows the manual on and off functionality required by Section 130.1a. So how many control steps are required? The answer depends on the type of lighting installed. Some types of lighting are great for dimming, while others are not. Sources like LEDs and linear fluorescence work well in dimming applications. As such, the standards require more control steps, or even continuous dimming, when using these types of lighting. Other sources, such as HID lighting, are more difficult to dim and usually cannot be dimmed to low levels. The Energy Standards require less control steps for those types of lighting. As an example, let's look at a 300 square foot conference room with a lighting power density of 1.1 watt per square foot. Under the Energy Standards, multi-level lighting controls are required in this space. Multi-level lighting controls must have at least the number of control steps specified in Table 130.1-A. A minimum of 4 control steps is needed for a space with linear fluorescent luminaires, with at least 1 step in each range. 1, 20 to 40%, 2, 50 to 70%, 3, 75 to 85%, and 4, 100%. In practice, this can be achieved in a couple ways. Continuous dimming, a manual dimmer controls all general lighting in the conference room. In this case, continuous dimming ballast or drivers are needed for each luminaire. Stepped dimming, for each luminaire, a manual dimming control provides at least 1 control step within the ranges specified in Table 130.1-A. For linear fluorescent luminaires with 4 lamps or more, switching alternate lamps in each luminaire. Lamps may be tandem wired such that power to each of the 4 lamps can be controlled separately by the dimming control. Multi-level lighting controls can save significant energy by providing the capability to precisely control the amount of light in the space based on occupant needs. However, there are a few exceptions to the multi-level control requirements. Classrooms with a connected general lighting load of 0.7 watts per square foot or less and public restrooms need only have one control step between 30 and 70% of full rated power, regardless of source type. Of course, more control steps can always be added. Also, an area enclosed by ceiling height partitions that has only one luminaire with no more than 2 lamps does not need to meet the multi-level lighting control requirements. Lastly, areas where full or partial off occupancy sensors are required under the energy standards are also not required to comply with the multi-level lighting control provisions. These areas include aisleways and open areas in warehouses, library book stack aisles 10 feet or longer that are accessible from only one end, and library book stack aisles 20 feet or longer that are accessible from both ends, corridors and stairwells, parking garages, parking areas, and loading and unloading areas. Next, we'll review some prescriptive requirements directly related to multi-level lighting controls. In Module 2 of this video series, we learned about power adjustment factors, or PAFs, which are available under the prescriptive compliance approach. Multi-level controls are key to achieving some of the voluntary control strategies that qualify for PAFs. Institutionalized tuning and daylight dimming plus off are examples of this. Multi-level controls are necessary for these strategies. Without them, institutionalized tuning and daylight dimming plus off would not be feasible. Also, under the prescriptive requirements, automatic daylighting controls are required in secondary side-lit daylit zones. We'll talk more about this in Module 5 of this video series. But again, multi-level lighting controls are absolutely necessary to achieve compliance with this prescriptive measure. Now that we know what multi-level controls are and where they're required, let's review the relevant forms and tables related to multi-level lighting controls. Multi-level lighting controls are documented on Certificates of Compliance and Installation. Form NRCC-LTI-01-E is required for all buildings. This is the Certificate of Compliance for indoor lighting. NRCC-LTI-02-E is used to document lighting controls installed to comply with the standards. Controls must be noted in Table A and listed separately in Table B. Following installation, compliance is documented on Certificate of Installation NRCI-LTI-01-E. Multi-level lighting controls are not directly called out, but the form must be completed to show compliance with the lighting control requirements in general. Acceptance testing is not required for multi-level lighting controls. However, the control steps they deliver will be verified as part of acceptance tests for other control types, such as automatic daylighting controls and demand response controls. Before we end this module, let's review what we've learned. We learned that multi-level lighting controls provide multiple levels of light and enable other energy-saving control strategies. Multi-level lighting controls are required for general lighting and enclosed spaces 100 square feet or greater, and with a lighting power density exceeding 0.5 watts per square foot. The number of required control steps depends on the type of lighting installed. Sources that can dim easily must provide more control steps as compared to sources that are difficult to dim. Multi-level lighting controls also enable additional control strategies like institutional tuning, which qualify for PAFs under the prescriptive compliance approach. This concludes Module 3. For more information on non-residential lighting controls, please visit the Energy Commission website at energy.ca.gov/Title 24/2016 standards.